Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike from Spectre Comics here. We are getting very close to sending Spectre Comics issue 6 out to the printer. I only have a few more tasks to do before we do that. And I thought it'd be fun today to take a look at some of the final inked pages and compare them to the original pencils that they were based on. So we'll set each page side by side, pencils to inks, and I'll show you kind of what translated from my original sketch to the final inks. I do want to point out that because I'm the sole creator and the only one who works on Spectre Comics, I can be a little less precise in my drawing because I can interpret my own drawings. But if I was to hand it off to another inker, I'd have to be a little more precise in my pencils so that the design that I laid out is translated into the inks. So that's just something to keep in mind if you've got multiple people working on a book or a piece of art. Drawing, you want to be as precise as possible, but you'll notice that some of my pencils are very sketchy, very loose, and not very detailed because I'm just laying it out for myself. I will add the detail myself the way I want it when I get to my inks. Before we get started though, would like you to subscribe to my channel, and if you like the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. It really helps share the video with other comic book fans and artists. So let's jump into the first example. So this is the first page of Spectre Comics, and you can see they're pretty accurate laid side by side. The first panel, I've got a 3-panel scheme on this page. This is the very first page of Spectre Comics, the title page. It's got the Spectre logo and the chapter title above. Now these are built into my template, so I just keep it in every template that I use for every page, and if I need it, I turn it on and I can make the adjustments. But you'll notice if we look at the first 2 panels, they are pretty close. You've got the close-up of Splow's eyes. Splow is the name of this character here, and he's got the reflection of the enemy in his eyeballs, and that was my intention. And then he's got these little waves which kind of indicate a telepathic connection, which ties into the previous issue, the final page of the previous issue. If we kind of look at this, even the second panel is pretty accurately depicted, so there's not really much to talk about here. They're pretty close. I did change some of the design of like the staffs and adjusted some of the locations of the characters. However, this page translates pretty closely. Probably the largest thing that I changed here was just the position of the Spectre in the cargo hold, in the hold that they're in, the little cell that they're in. So you can see that I adjusted the way they're talking and who's saying what, but I also changed their position. I actually sketched these guys separately and brought them into this page. So again, this first page of the book looks pretty accurate to the original pencils. Now this page 2 is very different from my original conception of the page. Part of this had to do with the fact that I was able to build a SketchUp model of this ship here and use it to model the ship in these pages. So here again, I was another 3-panel scheme. I was just trying to indicate what I wanted to see. In other words, the ship landing on the platform in the first panel. The second panel has the ship opening, the back of the ship's hatch opening so that the prisoners can get unloaded. But I even changed the direction. You can see here I've changed the direction of the view because it was important for me to show we're unloading prisoners. Where are they going? They're heading towards the facility that's down the road. When I originally thought of this page, I didn't kind of conceive that would be something I'd want to depict. So I like this angle a lot better because it's showing the prisoners getting unloaded and where they're going. And then we flip the scene again and change back to feature the Spectre prisoners that are coming out of the vessel, which are the focus of these first couple of pages. So you can even see in this panel, I had a closer shot of them coming down the platform, down the ramp, and then I pulled back a little more to get a couple more of the prisoners because there's other prisoners in this vessel as well, and the enemy is leading them off to the facility. So this page, probably one of the more drastic changes in layout than any of the pages that we're going to see in these examples. But here's a page. This is one of the in the first half of the book. This page translates pretty close. I might have changed some of the directions, like Risa's looking to the right, and here she's looking at her console in the background. These characters are set up, we're trying to create an environment, and there's multiple characters doing multiple things. So I sometimes show a talking head like Prox in this scene where he's the focus and I don't really draw any background, but sometimes you want to fill in the background so that everybody knows who's reading the book where the characters are and who's around them. So because you can see here Arco and Risa end up talking in the scene, but all of these panels pretty much translate pretty well. Now here's one thing. In this case, I actually like the way I penciled Arco's head here better than the final ink turned out. It's a little more squat, a little less pointy at the top, and I kind of like that layout, but for some reason it didn't translate when I went to inking it, but that happens sometimes. So I feel like pencils are a little looser sometimes and you can kind of get gestures a little better, and that's what happened here. So let's take a look at the next example. So here's another situation where I built a model of the Great Hall. This is the Great Hall back on Zanzibar, the homeworld of the Spectre. And I built the model, set a scene, and maybe I'll do a video on all of the SketchUp models I've built for this comic so we can kind of see how I modeled them and then how we used them in a page throughout the comic. So, again, I just quickly sketched the Great Hall here. It obviously doesn't look very good, but once I had it modeled and I can take a look at a model to draw it, it turned out much better. It's backlit with the moon, kind of showing light from the back, and then it's a nighttime scene, so the lights are on like it's an office building, and the leaders are working late. But the rest of the page translates almost one-to-one from panel to panel. So this page is a good example of, again, using a model to build a building, and then the rest of the panels pretty much translate. Here's another example of where I built a model. I actually built a model of this interior space. I call this the tube room because this is where the pneumatic tube drops down at the bottom of the ship to attach to the enemy vessel. But when I first sketched this, I hadn't modeled the room yet, and I didn't know how it was going to translate. And I wanted to make sure I got all the characters in, so nothing's even proportional here. But I wanted to show, there's certain things I wanted to show in this scene. One was the opening to the tube. I wanted to show the Arco and the Spectre gathered around it, and then I wanted to be able to see the room. But once I built the model, I was able to kind of get this angle, set this angle, make sure it showed the tube, the platform that it's on, and then I was able to put the characters around it individually, and then whoever was speaking in the scene from my script, I was able to make sure that the dialogue flowed around, because I had to set all the characters up where they were in a position to talk in sequence. So we start here with Prox talking, and then moving over to Arco, and then Risa talking. So every character placement in there is deliberate based on when they're talking so that I can read left to right, top to bottom. The rest of the page is pretty accurate, except in this scene right here where I changed the position of Prox, Spark, and Arco because I needed Arco to be involved, and having him between Prox and Spark, who are having a conversation, it just seemed right to just kind of shift them. So I literally just drew it here and then shifted it over. Another reason why when I ink, I put every character on a separate layer so that I can individually move them around if I need to. But again, a pretty close approximation following the layout of the original pencil. I thought that turned out pretty well. And this final example, another one where I used the model of this room to kind of get this tube drawn properly. I changed this. These first couple of panels up here are translated pretty well. I did change the direction Spark was looking. You can see he's looking to the right here because if you look at the panels on the page where Arco is and Spark is here around the tube opening, it'd be weird if he was facing the other way because he'd be looking over here. So, whoops. And then I also changed the way that the characters descended into the tube. Originally, I just had them jumping down, and then I thought, well, how are they going to get back up if they jump down the tubes, like 30 feet down? So I decided to create this grip line, kind of a descending apparatus, so they can grab a line, drop down, and then they can pull themselves back up. So that was a quick fix. And then instead of jumping down, I have Arco, the first one down the tube, on a zip line or grip line, zipping down into the tube room. So again, he's descending here because he jumped, and now he's slowly getting released down with the cable. And then same thing with the rest of the characters following into the scene. And then this final panel of the page, you have Arco looking at the Ori, who are sleeping from the sleeping gas from their invasion of the ship. And I had Arco turning, talking to Spark and Prox, who are right behind it. So this page translated pretty closely, but we did change a few things in the final iteration. But again, following from all those pages, it's pretty accurate. Now, I do have some detail in these, even some backgrounds we're showing, where I drew a background pencil in here, but then I ended up just going with a talking head with a little gray detailing in the background just to add some interest to the page. And I like to add gray tones. I do black and white comics, but I do like to do some gray tones in there just to give some visual interest to the page, so it's not just stark black and white. And I did mention in my last video that if I ever want to go back in color, I have the layers preserved on the PSD file. And in this case, I can just turn the gray layers off and add color on their own layers. Everything drawn in here, all the different characters, the backgrounds, everything's on a separate layer, so I can add the color beneath that. It should translate just fine. So that is it for the examples. I thought that was kind of fun to take a look at how everything translated. And it's kind of fun for me to go back all the way to the original pencils and just take a look at how I started and where the final page ended up. So as I mentioned, we are getting close to sending Spectre Comics issue 6 out to print. I will keep everybody posted on when that goes up on the store. And I just want to reiterate the point that if you do have somebody else inking your pencils, be as precise as possible and as detailed as possible so that the inking translates into the original design that you conceived of. If you are very sketchy and loose and not as detailed, the inker is going to interpret the way they want it and finish the page the way they want it. So if you're the creator, you want it to be the way you want it. So that's it for this video. Go ahead and again, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for future videos. The next video we're going to do on Spectre Comics is I'm going to run through cover design. So I've started working on the cover, so I'm working on that video right now. That should be going up in the next week or so. That's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.